The Western Conference in the NHL is generally a gauntlet, and that continues this year. We have some fantastic teams battling it out for that top spot, but there can only be one. So who will it be? Let's preview the Western Conference in the National Hockey League. All right, NHL preview continues now. Did the East already? Now it's time for the West. And we start by taking a look at the Central Division and one team that I thought that just quite frankly needed to do more this offseason and didn't do it. It is the Chicago Blackhawks. Their total is at 68.5. I hate this roster. I hate how they have built around Connor Bedard. I suppose impressed that they didn't just completely blow everything up and try to make some rash moves to surround Connor Bedard with some higher end talent and try to go down a bit of a spiral that way. That being said, I don't think this is a good roster. I think they are wasting Connor Bedard's what seemed to be very high potential, and it's another bad season for Chicago. That this is an easy under for me at 68.5. Up next, it is the Nashville Predators. They had just an atrocious season last year. Some talk that they may try to go the younger route for this year, but they haven't done that. They are sticking with this group, and you could talk yourself into a Nashville bounces back season here. Everyone a full off season together, not a weird training camp, all these sorts of things. I don't see it. I think that it is a accumulation of a lot of veteran talent that is kind of on the other side of it now. And I think the goaltending is probably going to get worse here. So I think Nashville continues to fall off. I think this is a pretty easy under at 84.5. Up next, it is the St. Louis Blues, a playoff team on the last day of the regular season last year. Their total is at 92.5. And much like the Atlantic Division in the East, this is a very deep, very talented division. And so you're going to have some good teams on the outs. And that's where St. Louis finds themselves at this particular time. I have them under this. I like a lot of the talent that they have. But there's a lot of pieces I don't like. And I have concerns about a team that had to go on just an absurd run last season to get into the playoffs. I don't think they're that much better, so that this one's under for me at 92.5. Up next, it is a team that I have making the playoffs for the first time in their new digs. It's the Utah Mammoth. I have them over 91.5. I think that they have a very exciting young core that has been knocking on the door for a bit. Obviously, that gets delayed a little bit because of the weirdness around how they exited Arizona and the final season there, but they have some big, good young pieces coming up. Getting Peterka was a fantastic move as well. I like so many pieces on this roster, and they have a lot of very exciting pieces that they could move in a trade to try to improve this group. So they're in for me. I am very much in on the Utah Mammoth. I have them over 91.5. Up next, the Minnesota Wild at 96.5 points. I like them a lot. I like Kaprizov. Eriksson Ek has just been kind of steady for a little bit now. You have Brock Faber on the blue line. Some good veteran pieces that can still contribute, and a goaltender who can be inconsistent but can be very good when he is on. I like this Minnesota team. I think they're really exciting, and I think now that they have a little bit more wiggle room because of the buyout situation and the salary cap improving, obviously a lot of that gets tied up next year with Kaprizov's contract, but I think they're going to be a player. Again, I have Minnesota in the playoffs and over 96.5. In third place in the Central, I have Colorado at 104.5 points. Probably a touch under for me with that. I didn't love the offseason that they had. I felt like they had a couple of moves where you would look at it and say, who were you negotiating against here, right? So, yes, Landeskog, all of that. I think that the moves that they made at center didn't really help them out a ton last year. And then doubling down on the Nelson piece, I guess I can see that. But I don't love a few pieces on here. The high-end talent is obviously incredible. It really is. Like McKinnon, Makar, Taves, all like just the list goes on, right? It's a fantastically talented hockey group. I just worry about some of the secondary pieces a little bit more with this team and in a tight division that plays out, I think, and that kind of shows up. In second place, I have the Winnipeg Jets, the President's Trophy winners from last year, down to 98.5 points. I get Ehlers left. I felt Ehlers was underutilized in Winnipeg, so I don't view that as massive of a loss as maybe they would have had. I like the idea of Jonathan Toews in Winnipeg. I think this is a great regular season team, and we were able to take advantage of this last year, where the last thing we saw of Winnipeg was Winnipeg struggling. So, well, they're going to struggle again, right? Doesn't work that way. I like Winnipeg to go over 98.5. And then number one in the Central Division, it's the Stars. A full season with Rantanen there, another year of development for some of the young kids that they have in this organization, and I think you can get very excited very quickly about where Dallas is going. I think if they make a move, say with Calgary for Rasmus Andersson, this turns into like the team in the National Hockey League. I think they're a defenseman away from that right now. They have three guys that you trust. You add Rasmus on the right side of that. This is a terrifying team. They could win it all as is, but they're a couple slight improvements away from being just awful to have to deal with. So that's how I see the Central Division playing out. Hey, if you could help us out with sharing this video, that would help me out a lot. Wherever you are tuning into this, hit that share button, would really help grow this channel in the ways that we would want. All right, one division to go. It is time for the Pacific Division. Up first, it is the San Jose Sharks at 71.5. I want to go kind of a sneaky over on this, but I still think they are... I think when they make a step, they'll make a couple in a row. I think that they're just before that point. So I have them under 71.5. I like a lot of the young pieces, and I like what they are building there, but they're a bit away still, I think. Next, I have the Calgary Flames at 82.5. I know that this is quite the drop from last year, and we were wrong on going under 81.5 last year, but the backup goalie situation in Calgary is horrendous. They are going to lose one of their best defensemen at some point this season, and while there are exciting prospects coming up that can score, this team just in general doesn't score a whole lot, and they required superhuman performances from their goalie a season ago. If he is only good this year, they have a problem. So I think they kind of need everything to go right to get to around this number again. I don't think that's going to happen, so I'm going to go under 82.5 on the Flames. Next, it's the Seattle Kraken at 78.5. I have them going under as well, just not as under as Calgary, I guess. They strike me as a team that, like right now, they're on a lot of tanking teams. And I think Seattle, maybe not tanking, but they have a lot of players on one-year deals that I think they could move and get some pretty good pieces in and try to kind of get ahead of the curve that way. So I think that this is going to be a bit of a sell-off season in Seattle, so I have them under at 78.5. Next is the LA Kings. This one I am so under 98.5. I loved how they played down the stretch last year after the trade deadline, adding some offensive firepower to that group with Kuzmenko was hugely impactful. I hated their offseason. And we saw in Calgary, Kuzmenko can have a very big impact one year and then disappear the next. He's just on a one-year contract, so I think that helps. But I feel like trying to take that next step with Dumoulin and Ceci and those guys, it's not the way. I think this division is getting better, and I think the Kings got quite a bit worse this last offseason. I hated the moves that they made. So I'm all the way out on the Kings. I have the Ducks ahead of them. Next in the division here. Their total is at 83.5. I'm going over on it. Not over enough to get them into the postseason, but I'm going over on this team. I wasn't a big Zegras fan, so them losing him isn't much for me. I thought they were going to be a bit more aggressive this offseason, but they do have some young pieces that I think are ready to take some steps and be very dangerous in this league. So I think they're going to be around. I think they're going to be competitive. I don't think they're in the playoffs, but I think they're ahead of 83.5. And then you have Vancouver at 89.5. I'm going over on this one. It is requiring a lot. Health from Thatcher Demko, for one, like that has to be the case. You are requiring Evander Kane to not be the giant distraction that JT Miller was a season ago. But I think when you look at what could improve this year, Quinn Hughes is obviously a stud still. That's That's not going to change. But I think that there are some improvements coming, and not the least of which is Elias Pettersson. He has been dreadful since signing that contract. At his best, he's one of the most talented players in the National Hockey League. It shouldn't be as bad as it's been the last 365 days for this guy, given the talent that he has out on the ice. I think having Besser locked up just eliminates a lot of questions there as well and creates a bit more comfort in the locker room that way. So I think there's a lot going on there. Also, we don't do a lot of fantasy hockey here. Watch out for I've always known it as Lekaramaki, but I think they kind of Lekaramaki. You know who I'm talking about. Either way, the kid. And now it's one preseason, whatever. But he is a fantastic goal scorer at every level. And it feels like watching him in training camp and in the preseason, it feels like he's kind of taken another step this year to be like that kind of a guy. Höglander being out for the first couple months of the season stings a lot. But I think Lekaramaki can be a weapon for this team and another top six forward that they have been missing out in Vancouver that I think gets them back into the playoffs. Second place in the division, I have the Edmonton Oilers, obviously no longer having to deal with any Connor McDavid drama, but they still have a bottom six that is subpar, and they still have a blue line that I have questions about, and they still have a goaltending situation that I have major questions about. It's still obviously a playoff team. It is a team that is going to go deep into the playoffs, but 105 points, I'm not there. I think, like I said, this division's getting better, and I think there's just too much inconsistency in a lot of their games to, I don't think it's a hammer under or anything like that, but I would go under 105.5. And my Pacific Division winner are the Vegas Golden Knights. I think Mitch Marner getting added to the fray there helps out a lot. I think he fits their style perfectly in a number of different ways. They are going to need to address secondary scoring a little bit more, and adding teams that Mitch Marner's on don't tend to do very well secondary scoring wise, but I think they're going to find a way with how aggressive they are as a front office to get a little bit more scoring punch behind the big guys at the top of the lineup. And so I have Vegas winning this division. So now the playoffs. Up first, it would be Vegas against Utah in the first round, Edmonton against Vancouver, Dallas playing Minnesota, and Winnipeg, Colorado. I have Vegas moving on against Utah. I like where Utah is going. That would be quick, thorough. Edmonton gets past Vancouver. Like I said, I like a lot of what is developing in Vancouver, but the Oilers are on another level at this point. So that would be your Pacific Division final. And then I would go Dallas with the win over Minnesota, and Winnipeg. I think Taves does help in that locker room come playoff time to get them over the Colorado hump. So pretty chalk on the side there. For Vegas, I have, for the West, I have Vegas beating Edmonton in the second round of the playoffs, and I have Dallas beating Winnipeg in the second round. So the two division winners go head to head, and I have Dallas winning that one. Didn't do this with the East because I had ran out of time on the stream, I believe. But the playoff matchups that I have out East are Carolina against Ottawa, the Devils against the Capitals, Montreal as the Atlantic Division winner taking on Florida, and then Tampa Bay against Toronto. In the second round, it is Carolina against New Jersey and Florida, Tampa Bay. So I do have the Lightning beating the Leafs in the playoffs. I have Florida with what would look like an upset of a wildcard team over a division winner. But that experience is what it is, right? So there's that. And then Carolina and New Jersey, that feels pretty safe. In the Eastern Conference Final, I have Carolina and Florida again, but I think the Miles catch up to Florida, and I do think that the Hurricanes are a improved hockey team. I love the signing of Ehlers and some of the other stuff that they have done. So give me Carolina to go to the Cup Final, which would give me Dallas against Carolina in the Stanley Cup, and my Stanley Cup pick, the Dallas Stars. That is who I have winning the Stanley Cup for the 2025 season. What do you guys think? I can't imagine every one of those predictions, just 32 for 32, nailed it right on the dot. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments or get at me on social media at Primetime Klein.